Okay, so I'm working on my 2008 Mazda 6 here today. Going to be replacing these front struts, and these are in pretty bad shape. You can tell simply by pushing on these things. And if you're bottoming out a lot, or it's doing a lot of bouncing. Now, I'm going to be going with a complete strut on this one. This car is said almost at 200,000 miles, and for a do-it-yourselfer, a lot of times these complete ones are going to be a lot easier. So you can reuse your old springs. In other words, you can get the strut, get this shock part, and just transfer your spring and your mount and everything over to that. But like I said, in my case, mine are just simply wore completely out. These bearing mounts and everything are worn out on mine. I don't want to reuse any of that stuff. Now normally on a car, if it's not too bad a shape, I'll just take and I've reused my springs and stuff and not had a problem with it, because it's cheaper to do that. But like I said, for do-it-yourselfer, these are really the way to go. It's going to be a lot quicker and a lot easier for you. So this is a brand I'm using. I've used these before. It's not a real expensive brand. I would say it was like, middle of the line quality, but they seem to hold up pretty well for the time that I had the vehicle. They seem to do to work pretty well. And I've gotten other cheaper struts that I wasn't happy with, but these seem to do okay. And I'll leave a link to where I got these. So we're just going to go ahead. We don't need a lot of tools. We're going to go ahead and get started on this. Okay, these here are going to be 21 millimeters. You want to slightly break those loose before you go to jacking it up if you don't have an impact. I'm just getting my jack stand right under here. And we're just going to go ahead and get this lift up, and you can use some blocks or a jack stand. I'm just going to put something right back here onto this pinch weld, and we'll just leave the jack in place while we're doing this. There's no need to remove it. It's not going to get in our way, but you just want to definitely have you some blocks or jack stand as well. Okay, and here we got our jack stand and our jack. We just got the left in place. We're going to go ahead and work on getting our lugs off here using this 21 millimeter. And get you a bucket or something to put all of your bolts and stuff in so you're not losing them. Okay, so we got our wheel off. The first thing I'm going to do is get in here and get this brake line. We've got a 12 millimeter. We're just going to go ahead and take that loose because it's going to be attached to that. So we'll go ahead and do that first. Okay, so there's that little bolt. Just don't lose it. We'll just pull this off of there. And if you want, you can just put your bolt back where it goes for now, so you're not losing it. Don't forget to get it off the old strut. So the next thing, now that I've got that loose, I'm going to get down here on this, and this is going to be a 14 millimeter. I'm just going to pull that over a little bit. Now what you'll want to do if you don't have an impact is get you a 5 millimeter, and it's going to go right in here. It may be a little bit rusty, but it does fit. You may have to work with it a minute to get it to go, or go to a standard size if you can't. But we need to hold that, and that is going to be 15, I believe. So we're going to, actually 14. So we're going to go ahead and hold this with our Allen, while we break that loose. Now a lot of times I will also take and double these up just for some extra leverage, because sometimes they can be really tight. But we're going to go ahead and get that broke loose. I said you'll want to go this direction actually to get it loose, but go ahead and get this here loose and hold it with that Allen wrench. Okay, so I wound up using a 3/16 because that 5mm wasn't wanting to fit in there. I guess it's so rusty, but we did get it loose, and we're just going to finish getting that off of there, and we'll just back this back out of the way like so, and we'll just put this back on here as well. So that's all there is to that. Okay, now while we're right here at this, we've got a 14mm pinch bolt right here as well, and we're just going to go ahead and remove that. Now if you've got a impact, it's definitely going to make things easier, but it's not necessary. You just have to use a cheater pipe to break a lot of these loose, but it's just going to make things quicker if you've got one. So we're just going to completely remove that, and we'll set that aside so we don't lose it. Okay, so now we're going to come over here to my left side of this fork, and we're going to look right down here, and you'll notice that we've got a bolt right there. That is a 15mm. Now we're going to go ahead and just remove that, and this bolt comes all the way through to this side, and you'll note that there's a little metal attachment here on this nut that holds this while you tighten it. So when you go to loosen it, it'll flop around here and do the same thing, so you don't have to hold that right there. So just to go ahead and get over here on this side with your 15mm, and like I said, I'm just going to use my impact, and we're going to go ahead and take that out of there as well. And that'll fall off there like that, just don't lose it. Now once that's loose, we may have to lift up on this a little bit to work this out, but actually it's coming right out, no problem. But just don't lose your pieces, and just pay attention. Show you how you take them off of there. We'll just set these aside. So now with that out, this here will drop down out of our way. So that'll just fall right off of there, and now we've got actual room to work here. So we're going to go ahead and go open the hood now, and we've got some bolts up there we need to get. Okay, so we come up top here, and we've got these three 14mm. Got three of them. Do not touch your center bolt. Don't mess with that. Go ahead and take these three loose, and I'll probably take a couple, and then I'll ease this last one off because it's going to want to fall down. I'll probably try to at least get a hand on it so it just don't fall out of there. So we're going to go ahead and just remove these three 14mm, and that's going to release the strut. Okay, so we got those three off of there, and it's just kind of sitting there at the moment. And said it'll pretty much only go one way, but we're going to go ahead and just work this down with those pieces. You got to watch out for your brake line here. Ron's trying to get caught up here, but it will just come right out of there. And that's all there is to that. I said mine, you can see everything is just wore out. So this car's got a lot of miles. I just did not want to reuse any of this. And these things are just as wore out as you can get. So we're going to go ahead and get our new one over here now. Okay, and you'll have a few stickers to remove. Now you'll want to go ahead and take these top 3 nuts off and get those out of the way before you try to put it in. You'll notice on these that they are made, at least these are, I'm sure yours should be the same, you get a complete strut, but they're made to go on either side because they have these. Really the only difference is the nut right there that holds the brake line. Other than that, they're the same, and they would go on either side regardless. So yours probably will be the same thing, but if not, just pay attention to which side that your brake line goes on, and that's the only difference that you got to contend with as far as that goes. So we're just going to go ahead and work on setting this back up into place here now. So it's real easy. We'll just work the top part in first, and we'll kind of get our top bolts, maybe one of them started, and then we'll just kind of push everything up. It really doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get it in there. It's up to you, whatever's easiest, but I'm going to go ahead and just work this thing back up into here, and I'm going to pay attention that this little nub that you see right here is going to be facing me, and that's really the only thing that you need to worry about. And of course, just make sure that your bolts are going to go into the holes so they're lining up. And like I said, that little groove right there is where that part is going to go into, so that's the only thing you got to worry about with that. So we're just going to go ahead and start working it in here. Okay, I've just slid it up in there just like that, making sure my brake line's back at the back where it's going to be going. I've just got one of my nuts started right now. It's not tight or anything. And now we're going to go ahead and we'll work on pulling this up into place here. So there's nothing to it. It just lines up just like that. Goes right in that groove. And we're going to pull it all the way up until it can't go any farther. And then we'll go ahead and start our bolt from this side right here and tighten that down. And I'm going to be using Loctite on all the bolts and all the nuts as well. Okay, so we just Loctited this 14 millimeter and tighten that to 35 foot-pounds. And we're going to go ahead and get this into place, and we're going to also put a little bit of Loctite on it. And you may have to work this thing around if it doesn't want to go. So we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to get our little Allen wrench. And there's a special, if you want to torque this thing, I wouldn't go more than 25 to 30 foot-pounds tops. There's a special little wrench that'll go around that for the torque while you hold it. Now it's also, once you get it snugged down, you may be able to torque it with your torque wrench without holding that, just as a note. But I don't usually worry with fuss with torque on every little thing. So now we're going to go ahead and just get our bolt off our other strut. We're going to put in here. We're going to tighten this to about 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so this is a 12 millimeter. We're just snugging this here down for this brake line here. And I've also put some Loctite on there. Now, just make sure that this bottom part goes into the little slot that it's supposed to there. It may try to move on you. Okay, so we got that tightened back down there, that 12 millimeter. Now we're going to go ahead and work on putting our lower bolt in. Remember, it has this piece that goes on this other side, locks it in. So we're going to feed it in through this side, and we're going to also put some Loctite on here, and we're going to tighten this to like 70 foot-pounds. And just get it tight. If you don't have a torque wrench, just get things tight, the bigger bolts. But when you're working with little bolts, be cautious, because you can break them. Don't get carried away. So we're going to go ahead and get a little Loctite on this, and we're going to slide that through. We'll have to lift up slightly onto this. You just grab it right here and just lift up a little bit, and you may have to wiggle it to get it to line up to go through properly. It's not a big deal. This thing will move some, and we don't have everything just terribly tight. We just got one nut in the top up there. So we're going to go ahead, slide it in from this direction and start working it in, and we'll get some Loctite on there. Okay, so I was just holding this part with my hand. I put the Loctite on that nut. I was just holding it while I got on this side and just snugged it. And you can see when I turn on this to go to tighten it, it'll spin that around and it hits right there, so you don't have to worry about holding that. So we're going to go ahead and get this tighter, torque it down to 70 foot-pounds. We just tighten it from this side. So we're going to go ahead and tighten that down, and we'll be finished up with that. Okay, so we've got that big 15 millimeter tightened down, and I just wanted to point out, when you're sliding that through, you can move this up and down. It's not very difficult to line it up, and this fork also, you have all kinds of movement to move it back and forth to get your bolt to line up and slide through there. So it is not difficult at all. So we've got everything tightened and torqued down here. We're just going to go ahead and go up top at this point, and we're going to put some Loctite on these. Now, it came with some new locking nuts. However, I like these OEM better, so I'm going to put some Loctite on these, and I'm just going to be reusing these. I'm going to be tightening these to 25 foot-pounds. Don't get carried away with these little bolts and stuff, because you can break them. So we're going to get some Loctite and go ahead and snug these down now. Okay, and with those torqued down, we're ready to go ahead and get our tire back on. And definitely, I think this is going to be a big improvement. Like I said, these do wear out in time, and this one's got close to 200,000, so they've been long overdue to be changed out. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheel on here now and torque our lugs back down to about 100 foot-pounds. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and just remove our jack stands and all of our wheel chocks and everything. Always remember safety first anytime working on stuff like this. Okay, so we got those lugs tightened down, and they said it all went smoothly. It's definitely the difficulty level of these struts is, it's just not that difficult. So I would say that it's definitely something you could do yourself, and you're definitely going to feel better about yourself having done so. So you know, if you're having a lot of bouncing and your car's bottoming out and making noises, you know, you may want to replace these struts if you got a lot of miles on them. And sometimes even when you don't have a lot of miles, they'll wear out. Now I haven't got a hold, we'll have to get a hold of my back struts and deal with those later. So anyways, I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, give it a like. As always, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, and that's going to conclude this video, and I thank y'all for watching.